The year was 3412. Humans lived among the stars. They had colonies on many planets. For 7,000 years, they had peace with the Galactic Consortium. The Consortium was a group of alien species from all over the galaxy. Humans were a small part of this big space family. They were not the strongest or the smartest, but they had earned their place. On the planet New Eden, the sky was always a light purple color. The air smelled sweet, like flowers all the time. Children played in parks under trees with blue leaves. It was a good place to live. Lily Martinez was 12 years old. She had dark hair and bright eyes. She was walking home from school with her friends. They laughed and talked about normal things, what they would do on the weekend, who liked who. The hard math test they just took. "Look," said her friend Ben, pointing up. "What's that?" Strange lights filled the sky. They were not like ships or stars. They moved in ways that seemed wrong somehow. The lights got brighter and brighter. Lily felt a strange tingling all over her body. Her vision blurred. The last thing she heard was Ben calling her name. Then everything went black. At that same moment, Governor Jack Nelson sat in his office. He was looking at reports about farm output. New Eden grew food for 3 other colony worlds. It was important work, but not very exciting. He was happy when his assistant knocked on the door. Any break from reading reports was welcome. "Sir," said the young man. His face was pale. "We have a problem." The emergency calls started coming in all at once. Parents came home to empty houses. Schools reported missing students. Search teams found backpacks dropped on sidewalks, toys left in yards, but no children. Governor Nelson called an emergency meeting. Police, doctors, and colony leaders all gathered in the main hall. "How many?" Nelson asked the police chief. 322, said the chief, all between 5 and 15 years old. A woman stood up. Her eyes were red from crying. "Where are they? Where is my daughter?" No one had an answer. Then the communications officer rushed in. "Sir, it's not just us. We're getting reports from other colonies, Harvest Moon, Terra Nova, New Washington, all reporting the same thing, children gone." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Catherine Walsh received the emergency messages. 17 human colonies all reporting the same thing. Nearly 2,000 children missing all at the same time. This was not an accident. This was not a natural disaster. This was planned. Admiral Walsh had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years. The fleet was mostly for show these days. No one expected a fight. No one had fought a war in thousands of years. Her ships were well maintained, but had never fired their weapons except in practice. "Get me the president," she told her communications officer, "and prepare the fleet for possible action." Ambassador Peter Daniels was at the Consortium Central Station when he heard the news. He immediately requested an emergency meeting with the Consortium Council. The council was made up of representatives from the 27 main species in the galaxy. But when he arrived at the council chambers, only half the seats were filled. None of the hegemony representatives were there. The hegemony was the most powerful species in the consortium. They had been the first to develop faster-than-light travel. They had formed the consortium 10,000 years ago. "Where are the others?" Daniels asked. A tall, thin alien with blue skin spoke. "They have called an emergency session of their own. They will not be joining us." Daniels felt cold fear in his stomach. "Do you know what's happening? Children are missing from our colonies." Aliens looked at each other. None would meet his eyes. "You know something," Daniels said. His voice got louder. "Tell me." The blue alien stood up. "We cannot help you. To go against the hegemony would mean the end of our own worlds." Back on Earth, President Olivia Russell watched the reports with growing anger. No one in the consortium would give straight answers. Then a message came in from the hegemony directly. The alien on the screen had gray skin and 6 eyes. It was High Counselor Zextral. "The children are being collected for the greater good of the galaxy," it said in a flat voice. "Do not interfere." The screen went dark. "What does that mean?" asked the Secretary of Defense. "Collected? Like they're specimens?" President Russell had no answer, but a new message was coming in. It was from an alien ship requesting emergency landing clearance at the main Earth spaceport. The ship was small and looked damaged. When it landed, only one alien came out. It was thin and had skin that changed colors like a chameleon. It called itself Drell. "I must speak with your leaders," it said. "I know what has happened to your children." Drell was a scientist who had worked for the hegemony for many years. When it learned of the plan for the human children, it couldn't stay silent. "Human children have special brains," Drell explained to the emergency council. "When they reach a certain age, their brains create energy patterns we have never seen in any other species. The hegemony has built a machine that can use these patterns." "Use them for what?" Admiral Walsh asked. "Power," said Drell. "Not just electrical power. The power to control minds, to control whole planets. They have been watching humans for centuries, waiting for your population to grow enough to harvest." "Harvest?" President Russell's voice shook with anger. "The children will not be killed," Drell said quickly. "They will be kept alive, in special tanks. Their brains will be stimulated to produce the energy. They might live many years this way." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Walsh spoke. "Where are they being taken?" "To a place called the Nexus," said Drell. "It is hidden in a gas giant in the Orion Spur. I can give you the coordinates, but you should know it is heavily defended." President Russell stood up. Her face was hard as stone. "Get me a direct line to every human colony and settlement," she said. "I need to address our people." An hour later, she stood before cameras that would send her image to every human in the galaxy. "For 7,000 years, we have lived in peace with the Galactic Consortium," she began. "Today, that peace has been broken, not by us, but by the hegemony who have taken our children." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "I have a message for the hegemony. We are coming for our children, all of them. Return them now unharmed and we can avoid what comes next." She took a deep breath. "And to the rest of the consortium, you have a choice to make. Stand with the hegemony or stand with us. Because as of this moment, humanity is at war." The United Earth Parliament building was silent. 1,000 elected officials from Earth and its colonies sat in the big round room. No one spoke. They had just watched President Olivia Russell's speech. They had seen the faces of parents who lost their children. Now they had to vote. President Russell stood tall at the speaker's platform. Her gray hair was pulled back tight. Her blue eyes were hard with anger. "For 7,000 years, we have lived in peace," she said. "We have traded with the consortium. We have shared knowledge. We have been good neighbors. And in return, they have stolen our children." She hit the table with her hand. "I ask you now to formally declare war against the hegemony leadership. Not against all aliens, not against the whole consortium, but against those who planned this evil thing." A man stood up. "Madam President, we have no army. Our ships are not made for war. How can we fight the most powerful race in the galaxy?" "With everything we have," she said. "Every ship, every weapon, every person willing to fight. We will find our children and bring them home." Another person stood. "What about the peace treaty? We signed it after the first contact war. If we break it now, we might never have peace again." President Russell's voice was cold. "They broke the treaty when they took our children. We are only responding." The vote was quick. No one said no. For the first time in 7,000 years, humanity was going to war. Admiral Catherine Walsh stood in the museum shipyard. Around her were hundreds of ships. Some were very old, from before the peace treaty. Others were newer but had never been used in battle. They were kept working as historical pieces to remind people of the old days. "We need to get all of them ready," she told her officers. "Every ship that can fly, every weapon that can fire." An officer named Sam looked worried. "Ma'am, some of these ships are over 5,000 years old. They're not meant to fight modern battles." Walsh nodded. "I know, but we have no choice. No. The hegemony has the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. We need every ship we can get." All across Earth and the colonies, people who had once been in the military came back to service. Old pilots, old soldiers, Old ship captains. They had never thought they would fight again. Peace had lasted so long, but now they were needed. Civilian ships were brought in too. Cargo ships, mining ships, even luxury cruise ships. Workers added weapons and shields to them. They weren't as good as real warships, but they were better than nothing. Dr. Alan Wright was the best xenobiologist on Earth. He knew more about alien bodies than anyone. Now he was trying to understand why the hegemony wanted human children. He worked in a lab with 20 other scientists. They hardly slept. They needed answers fast. "Look at this," he said to his team. He showed a brain scan on a big screen. "This is a normal human child's brain at age 12. See these patterns? They're unique, no other species has them." Another scientist asked, "But what makes them special? Why would the hegemony want them?" Dr. Wright pointed to certain parts of the scan. During puberty, human brains create specific electromagnetic patterns. They're incredibly complex. The hegemony has found a way to capture these patterns and use them as a power source. The team looked horrified. "They're using children as batteries?" one asked. "Not exactly," said Dr. Wright. "The children aren't being killed. They're being kept in a sort of sleep state. Their brains are stimulated to produce these patterns. It's more like a cow being milked than a battery being drained." No one found this comforting. While scientists worked to understand the why, military leaders worked on the how. How to find the children. How to rescue them. How to fight the most powerful species in the galaxy. Commander Nicole Sutton was chosen to lead a special team. She was 40 years old, with short black hair and serious eyes. She had been training special forces for 20 years, even though no one ever thought they would be used. Now she was glad for all that training. "Our mission is simple but difficult," she told her team of 12. "We need to get into the hegemony homeworld, find out where the children are being kept, and plan a rescue." A young man named Frank raised his hand. "How do we get past their defenses? Their planet is the most heavily guarded in the galaxy." Sutton smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "We go in disguise, as maintenance workers on a supply ship. The hegemony has gotten lazy. They think they're untouchable. They've forgotten what it's like to have enemies." The team began training. They practiced moving silently, speaking the hegemony language, using alien tools and weapons. They would have only one chance to get this right. On Earth, people prepared for possible attacks. Old defense systems were turned back on. Underground shelters were opened and checked. For most people, war was just something from history books. No one alive had ever seen a real battle. Now they had to prepare for one. President Russell met with the alien Drell again. The alien's skin was pale blue, showing fear or worry. "You should know," it said. "The hegemony will not expect you to fight. They think humans are soft, peaceful. They think you have forgotten how to make war." "They're wrong," said Russell. "We remember, and they have given us the best reason in the world to fight. Our children." Drell's skin darkened, showing respect. "There is something else. Some in the consortium do not agree with what the hegemony has done. They may help you if you ask." "Who?" asked Russell. "The Velthani, the Morgath. Others who have suffered under hegemony rule. They are not strong enough to fight alone. But with humans? Maybe." Russell thought about this. "We need all the help we can get. Set up meetings." In space, the Earth fleet gathered. 500 ships, most not designed for battle. They were crewed by retired officers and fresh recruits. Admiral Walsh stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defender. "This is Admiral Walsh to all ships," she said over the communication system. "Our mission is clear. Find our children. Bring them home. The hegemony thinks we have forgotten how to fight. We're about to remind them." A young officer brought her a message. "Ma'am, the scout ship Pathfinder has sent coordinates. They found something in the Orion Spur." Walsh looked at the data. It showed a massive structure hidden in the atmosphere of a gas giant. Energy readings were off the charts. "That's it," she said. "That's where they're keeping the children." She turned to her crew. "Set course for the Orion Spur. and tell all ships to prepare for battle. The fleet moved out, ships of all shapes and sizes flying together. They had not been built for war. Their crews had never expected to fight, but they were humanity's only hope. As they flew toward the Orion Spur, reports came in from the colonies. Strange ships had been seen near human worlds. The hegemony was watching, maybe planning more abductions, or maybe preparing to stop the human fleet. Commander Sutton and her team boarded their transport ship. It was disguised as a hegemony supply vessel. They wore alien environment suits that hid their human features. "Remember," Sutton told them, "our job is to gather information only. Find where the children are, find out how they're guarded, then get out. The main fleet will handle the rest." The small ship took off, flying away from the fleet toward hegemony space. They were on their own now. If they were caught, no one could help them. On Earth, Dr. Wright made a breakthrough. "We can disrupt the energy harvesting process," he told President Russell. "If we can generate a specific electromagnetic pulse, it will make the children's brain patterns useless to the hegemony machines." "Will it hurt the children?" Russell asked. "No," said Wright, "but it will only work at close range. We need to get our ships near the Nexus station." Russell nodded. "I'll tell Admiral Walsh her fleet is already headed that way." The war had begun. Humanity had not fought in 7,000 years, but they had not forgotten how. And with their children's lives at stake, they would fight harder than ever before. The Pathfinder was a small, fast scout ship. Captain Ryan Morris was proud of his ship and his crew of 20. They had been exploring the edges of human space for 5 years. Now they had a different mission. "Stay alert," he told his crew. "We're entering dangerous space." The Pathfinder moved quietly through an asteroid field. Their sensors were set to passive mode only. They didn't want to be found. They were looking for something or someone. 3 days ago, they had received a strange message. It came on an old frequency that hadn't been used in thousands of years. The message was simple. "Not all agree with the hegemony. Meet us at the place where the 3 stars align." Captain Morris knew what that meant. It was an old reference from the First Contact War. The place was a small moon orbiting a dead planet in neutral space. If this was a trap, they were flying right into it. As they approached the moon, their sensors detected a ship. It was not a hegemony design. It was smaller with elegant curves. A Velthani ship. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. Morris nodded. "Put them through." The screen showed an alien with pale pink skin and large dark eyes. "I am Speaker Lore of the Velthani," it said. "We wish to talk." Hours later, Captain Morris sent an urgent message to Earth. "I've made contact with representatives from the Velthani and Morgath species. They want to help us. They say others will join too. This isn't just our war anymore." On Earth, Ambassador Peter Daniels met with the alien representatives. The Velthani were tall and graceful. The Morgath were short and solid, with thick limbs and rough skin. They looked very different, but they shared one thing: hatred of the hegemony. "For 10,000 years the hegemony has ruled the consortium," said Speaker Lore of the Velthani. "They claim it is a partnership of equals. It is not. They take what they want. They use who they want." Ambassador Daniels asked, "Why help us now? Why take the risk?" The Morgath representative, a female named Grush, spoke in a deep voice. "Because you fight. No one has stood up to the hegemony in thousands of years. You have given us courage. And," added Speaker Lore, "what they do to your children is wrong. If they succeed, they will have power no one can challenge. They must be stopped." What began as humanity's fight for their children grew into something bigger. A rebellion against the hegemony's control of the Galactic Consortium. Earth became the center of a new alliance. Ships from different alien species gathered. With the human fleet, the aliens brought valuable information. Speaker Lore confirmed what Drell had told them. "The children are being kept at a place called the Nexus. It is a space station hidden in the atmosphere of a gas giant in the Orion Spur. We know, said Admiral Walsh. We've detected it, but we can't get close. The defenses are too strong. Grush of the Morgath showed them a hologram of the station. It was massive, bigger than a small moon. There are weak points here and here, she said, pointing. Our engineers have studied the designs. With a coordinated attack, we might break through. The planning began in earnest. Human military leaders worked side by side with alien allies. They shared technologies, tactics, and information. Humanity hadn't fought a war in 7,000 years, but some of their allies had more recent experience with conflict. Dr. Elizabeth Carter was an expert in alien psychology. She worked closely with the new allies to understand the hegemony better. We need to know how they think, she told her team. What drives them? What scares them? Through long talks with Drell, Lore, Grush, and others, a picture emerged. The hegemony's entire society is built on control, Dr. Carter explained to President Russell. They don't just want power, they need it. They control other species by controlling vital resources. Like the energy they get from our children's brains, said Russell. Exactly, said Carter. They've been losing their grip on the consortium for centuries, new species joining, old alliances shifting. They needed something to cement their power. Our children are that something. This knowledge helped shape the battle plans. We don't need to destroy them, Admiral Walsh realized. We just need to take away their new power source. The children. Commander Sutton's team had reached hegemony space. Their disguised ship passed through security checks without problems. The fake IDs worked. The hegemony really had grown lazy after thousands of years without enemies. On the hegemony homeworld, Sutton and her team split up. They wore environment suits that hid their human features. They looked like maintenance workers, the kind no one pays attention to. Remember, Sutton told them through the secure comm link, we're just here to gather information. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. They placed small devices around the city. The devices looked like normal parts of the infrastructure, but they were actually sensors and communication relays. They would help the fleet when the time came. During their mission, they overheard hegemony officials talking. The humans were not behaving as expected. The hegemony had thought they would protest, complain to the Consortium Council, maybe even break diplomatic ties. They had not expected war. The humans are coming, said one official to another. They've gathered a fleet. The other laughed. Let them come. Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are toys. We will swat them away like insects. Sutton smiled inside her helmet. The hegemony was in for a surprise. Back with the fleet, the rebel aliens brought unexpected resources. The Velthani ships were fast and had advanced stealth technology. The Morgath brought powerful weapons they had been developing in secret. Other species joined day by day, each bringing something useful. We need to coordinate all these different ships and weapons, said Admiral Walsh. We've never fought alongside aliens before. A joint command center was set up. Translation systems allowed the different species to communicate clearly. Battle plans were drawn up that used each species' strengths. The war quickly spread beyond the initial conflict. The hegemony, realizing they faced a real rebellion, began attacking worlds they suspected of helping the humans. The Velthani home system was blockaded. A Morgath colony was bombed from orbit. These attacks only brought more allies to the human side. Species that had been neutral now saw the true face of the hegemony. Many chose to join the fight against them. On Earth, scientists and engineers worked around the clock to prepare old weapons and develop new ones. Museums were stripped of ancient but powerful devices. Historical archives were searched for forgotten military technologies. One such technology was the Prometheus Protocol. It had been developed just before the peace treaty was signed, 7,000 years ago. It was a weapon system that could generate a targeted electromagnetic pulse. It would disable technology, but leave biological beings unharmed. This could be the key, said Dr. Wright. If we can get close enough to the Nexus, we can use the Prometheus Protocol to shut down their systems without harming the children. Commander Sutton's team completed their mission on the hegemony homeworld and escaped without being detected. They brought back valuable intelligence about the hegemony's defenses and plans. "They're moving the children," Sutton reported. "Not all of them, but some. They're distributing them to different facilities. They know we're coming for the Nexus." This complicated the rescue plans. Now they would need to hit multiple targets. But Sutton had also discovered something else. The children are developing some kind of group consciousness. The hegemony scientists are worried about it. They don't understand what's happening. Dr. Wright was fascinated. It could be a side effect of the neural stimulation. The children's brains are being linked through the hegemony's machines. They might be communicating with each other mentally. "Can we use this?" asked President Russell. "Maybe," said Wright. "If we can contact them somehow, they might be able to help from the inside." The day came when the fleet was ready to move. 500 human ships and 300 alien vessels gathered at the edge of the Orion Spur. It was the largest fleet seen in the galaxy in thousands of years. Admiral Walsh addressed all the ships. "Today we fight not just for human children, but for freedom for all species. The hegemony has ruled through fear for too long. Together we will show them that fear goes both ways." The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, heading for the gas giant where the Nexus was hidden. Intelligence from their alien allies suggested the station was guarded by 100 hegemony warships. The odds were not good, even with their combined forces. But they had surprise on their side. The hegemony did not expect such a large fleet. They did not expect aliens to fight alongside humans. And they certainly did not expect the old technologies humanity had pulled from their museums. Sometimes, old weapons were the best weapons. They worked in ways modern defenses weren't designed to stop. As they approached the gas giant, Admiral Walsh gave the order, "All ships, battle formation, begin the attack." The war for the children had begun in earnest, and it would change the galaxy forever. The battle began in the swirling clouds of the gas giant. The planet was huge with bands of red, orange, and gold. Hidden in its upper atmosphere was the Nexus station. It looked like a metal spider, with a round center and 8 long arms stretching out. Admiral Walsh's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Right away, alarms sounded on the bridge of the Defender. "Hegemony ships detected," called out an officer. 120 of them. Walsh nodded. They had expected this. "Deploy the fleet as planned. Human ships in the center. Velthani on the left flank. Morgath on the right." The ships moved into position. The human vessels were a mix of old warships and converted civilian craft. The alien ships were more modern, with sleek designs and powerful weapons. Together they formed a fighting force unlike any seen in the galaxy for thousands of years. "Enemy ships are moving to intercept," reported the tactical officer. "Hold formation," ordered Walsh. "Remember the plan. We need to draw them away from the station." The hegemony fleet approached confidently. Their ships were the most advanced in the galaxy. They had not lost a battle in 10,000 years. They did not expect to lose today. The first shots were fired by the hegemony. Bright beams of energy cut through space. Several human ships took hits. Their shields flared and held, but just barely. "Return fire," ordered Walsh. "All ships, concentrate on their lead vessels." The human fleet fired. The Velthani and Morgath ships joined in. The space between the fleets filled with energy beams, missiles, and exotic weapons that bent the very fabric of space. This was the diversion. While the main fleet engaged the hegemony ships, a smaller force slipped past the battle. Commander Nicole Sutton led 20 small, fast ships toward the Nexus station. Half were human. Half were Velthani, using their advanced stealth technology to hide from sensors. "Stay on course," Sutton told her pilots. "No matter what happens out there, we keep going." The small ships dove into the gas giant's atmosphere. Here, sensors didn't work well. The thick gases and electromagnetic storms provided natural cover. But flying was dangerous. Winds reached thousands of miles per hour. Lightning bolts bigger than cities flashed around them. "There it is," said Sutton's co-pilot. Through the clouds, they could see the massive Nexus station. Its metal arms gleamed in the strange light of the gas giant's atmosphere. "All ships, approach pattern Delta," ordered Sutton. "Aim for the maintenance docks on the underside." Back in the main battle, things were not going well for the human fleet. The hegemony ships were powerful and well coordinated. Already, 15 human vessels had been destroyed. The aliens were doing better but still taking heavy losses. "We need to buy more time," said Admiral Walsh. "Deploy the museum pieces." From the center of the human fleet, 5 ancient ships moved forward. They were from before the peace treaty, preserved for 7,000 years as historical artifacts. Now they would fight again. The old ships looked crude compared to modern vessels, but they carried weapons that had been forgotten over the millennia, weapons that modern shields were not designed to stop. "Fire," ordered Walsh. The ancient ships released their weapons, not energy beams or missiles, but clouds of smart particles. Billions of tiny machines that ate through shields and hull metal. The hegemony ships had no defense against this obsolete technology. 3 enemy ships were disabled immediately. Their systems failed as the tiny machines chewed through key components. The hegemony fleet paused, surprised by this unexpected attack. Walsh used the moment of confusion. All ships pressed the attack, pushed them back from the station. At the Nexus, Sutton's team had reached the maintenance docks. They wore spacesuits designed to hide their human life signs. With them were alien allies who looked like hegemony workers. The disguises got them past the first security checks. Inside the station, they split into 3 teams. Sutton led the main team toward the central hub, where intelligence said the children were kept. The second team headed for the control center. The third went to the power core. "Stay in communication," Sutton told them. "If any team fails, the whole mission fails." The station was huge. The corridors seemed to go on forever. Sutton's team moved carefully, avoiding patrols. They placed small devices at key points, junction boxes, computer terminals, security stations. These would help them later. Finally, they reached a massive door marked with hegemony symbols that meant restricted and biological materials. "This is it," said Sutton. "Get it open." A Velthani engineer worked on the lock. The alien's long fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "It's complex," it said, "but not impossible." The door slid open. What they saw inside shocked them all. The chamber was enormous. It stretched farther than they could see. Floating in rows were thousands of transparent tanks. In each tank was a child, suspended in clear liquid. Tubes and wires connected to their bodies. Their eyes were closed, but their faces twitched as if dreaming. "My God," whispered Sutton. "There are so many of them." She walked up to the nearest tank. Inside was a girl with dark hair. The nameplate read, "Lily Martinez, New Eden Colony." "Lily," Sutton said softly. "We've come to take you home." She thought the girl couldn't hear her. But Lily's eyes opened. They were clear and aware. She looked directly at Sutton. Then her lips moved, forming words, even though she couldn't speak. Through the breathing mask, "I know." A Veltani scientist examined the control panels. "This is advanced technology. The children are connected to a central system. Their brain patterns are being harvested for energy." "How do we get them out?" asked Sutton. "Not easily," said the scientist. "The system was designed to be permanent. Disconnecting them improperly could kill them." The second team reported in from the control center. "We've accessed their systems," said the team leader. "But there's a problem. We're detecting hegemony troops heading your way. They know we're here." The third team called from the power core. "We've set the charges. On your command, we can shut down the main power, but emergency systems will kick in within minutes." Sutton made a decision. "We need more time. Contact the fleet. Tell Dr. Wright we need that disconnection protocol now." In the main battle, Admiral Walsh received the message from Sutton's team. The situation was critical. The human fleet was holding its own, but just barely. The museum pieces had given them an edge, but the hegemony was adapting. "Get me Dr. Wright," Walsh ordered. Wright appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but determined. "The protocol is ready," he said. "But someone needs to upload it directly to the Nexus central computer, and then someone needs to monitor each child as they're disconnected. It can't be done quickly." "How long?" asked Walsh. "Hours," said Wright. "Maybe days for all of them." Walsh shook her head. "We don't have hours. The fleet can't hold that long." Then she remembered the Prometheus protocol, the ancient weapon system that could disable technology without harming living beings. It was risky. It had never been used in combat, but they were out of options. "Prepare the Prometheus protocol," she ordered. "Target the Nexus station." An officer looked alarmed. "Admiral, if we use that against the station, it could kill the children." "No," said Walsh. "It will only disable the hegemony technology. The children will be safe, and it might give Sutton's team the edge they need." The officer nodded and began the preparations. Inside the Nexus, Sutton's team was pinned down. Hegemony troops had found them. Energy weapons fired down the corridors. They took cover behind equipment, returning fire when they... 1 year had passed since the battle at the Nexus. 1 year since humanity broke 7,000 years of peace and went to war. The cost had been high. Nearly a third of Earth's fleet had been destroyed. Thousands of people had died. But the children had been saved, and that made it worth the price. After rescuing the human children, Admiral Walsh had kept her promise. The fleet returned to the Nexus station. They found children from 6 other species being held in the same terrible conditions. All were rescued. The Nexus itself was destroyed, its technology too dangerous to fall back into hegemony hands. The war didn't end with that one battle. The hegemony fought back hard. They attacked human colonies. They punished alien species that had helped the humans. But their power had been broken. More and more species joined the rebellion against them. After 6 months of fighting, the hegemony leadership was captured when their home planet's defenses failed. Now, representatives from all species in the galaxy gathered on Earth. They met in a great hall built just for this purpose. It was time to create a new peace, one that would be fair to all. Admiral Catherine Walsh, now serving as Earth's chief diplomat, stood at the podium. She had traded her military uniform for formal diplomatic clothes, but she still stood tall and strong, just as she had on the bridge of her ship. 7,000 years ago, humanity signed a peace treaty with the Galactic Consortium, she began. We were new to the stars then. We didn't understand the politics of the galaxy. We didn't know that the peace we signed would cost others their freedom. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of aliens from dozens of different species. We cannot make that mistake again. The peace we create today must protect the rights of all species, not just the powerful ones. The negotiations lasted for weeks. There were arguments and disagreements. Each species had its own interests, its own needs. But they all agreed on one thing. The hegemony's control of the consortium had to end. The Galactic Consortium was dissolved. In its place, a new organization was formed, the Galactic Union. Under the new charter, each species had equal representation. No one species could make decisions for all. There were strict laws against the exploitation of sentient beings. For the first time in history, humans were recognized as full equals in the galactic community. Their willingness to fight for their children and then for the children of other species had earned them respect. The former hegemony leaders were put on trial for their crimes. Some argued they should be executed, but in the end, they were sentenced to live in peace on a single planet, stripped of their technology and power. "Killing them won't heal what they've done," said President Olivia Russell. "But making them live without the power they craved, that is justice." On New Eden Colony, Governor Jack Nelson watched as homes were rebuilt and families reunited. His own daughter had been among the abducted children. Now she was home but changed. All the children were changed by what they had experienced. "They're quieter now," he told his assistant. "More serious, they've seen too much. But they were also stronger in ways no one expected. The neural link the children had formed in the Nexus hadn't disappeared when they were disconnected. It had changed. become something new. The children could still sense each other's thoughts and feelings, though not as strongly as before. Dr. Alan Wright studied this phenomenon with amazement. Their brains formed new neural pathways, he explained to a group of scientists. The hegemony machine stimulated specific regions that are normally dormant in humans. Now those regions are active all the time. Dr. Elizabeth Carter established a special academy for the rescued children. They needed a place to learn how to use their new abilities and how to live normal lives again. They can share knowledge directly mind to mind, she told the Board of Education. One learns something and they all know it, but they need help controlling it, focusing it. The academy was built on a hill overlooking the ocean on Earth. It, Neem, had open spaces and gardens, very different from the cold metal tanks of the Nexus. Children from other species were invited too. Though they hadn't developed the same mental abilities, they had shared a similar trauma. Healing would be easier together. Lily Martinez, now 14 years old, became the first student at the academy. She had emerged as a leader among the children during their captivity. Now she continued that role, helping the others adjust. We're not victims, she told them. We're survivors, and we're something new, something that's never existed before. We need to decide what that means. The children formed a council to make decisions about their education and future. Despite their youth, they showed wisdom beyond their years. They had seen the worst the galaxy could offer, and they had overcome it. When the Galactic Union formed its Youth Advisory Board, Lily was chosen as the first human representative. She was the youngest member, but her experiences gave her a unique perspective. She became a powerful voice for the rights of children across the galaxy. No child, human or alien, should ever be used as a tool, she said in her first speech to the Union Council. We are not resources to be harvested. We are people with our own dreams and futures. The adult council members listened with respect. They had learned not to underestimate the young Admiral Walsh watching from her seat in the diplomatic section, felt pride. This was why they had gone to war. Not just to save the children, but to give them a chance to build something better than what came before. On the newly renamed Hope Station, built in orbit around Earth, the former enemies now worked together. Scientists from dozens of species studied the hegemony technology that had been captured during the war. They wanted to understand it, not to use it for power, but to make sure nothing like the Nexus could ever be built again. The science itself isn't evil, Dr. Wright explained to a group of alien colleagues. It's how it was used. We might find beneficial applications if we're careful. One such application was already helping the injured from the war. The same neural technology that had been used to harvest energy from children's brains could, with modification, help heal damaged nervous systems. Soldiers who had lost limbs could now use prosthetics controlled directly by their thoughts. Governor Nelson, whose leg had been injured in a hegemony attack on New Eden, was one of the first to receive such a prosthetic. It's strange, he said, walking smoothly on his new leg. I can feel the floor. I can feel temperature. It's like having my real leg back. The technology also helped build new communication systems. Based on the children's mental link, but less invasive, these systems allowed instant communication across vast distances. Ships that once took days to contact each other could now do so in seconds. Despite these advances, humanity remained cautious about neural technology. The memory of what had been done to their children was still fresh. Strict laws were passed governing its use. No one could be connected to such systems without clear consent, and never children. As the first anniversary of the Nexus battle approached, a monument was built in orbit around the gas giant where the station had once hidden. It was simple, just a metal sphere with the names of all the children who had been taken from all species. A permanent reminder of why the peace had been broken and why it must be protected. Admiral Walsh visited the monument with Lily Martinez. They floated in spacesuits looking at the names etched in the metal. Do you think it will last? Lily asked. The peace, I mean. Walsh was quiet for a moment. Peace is never certain, she finally said. It requires work, vigilance, The hegemony ruled through force and fear for 10,000 years. Those habits won't disappear overnight. Then we'll keep working, said Lily. Her young face was determined behind her helmet visor. All of us together. Walsh nodded. That's what makes this piece different from the last one. It's not just a piece of paper signed by leaders. It's built on cooperation, on shared suffering and shared triumph. They drifted in silence, watching the swirling colors of the gas giant below them. The same storms that had once hidden the Nexus now provided a beautiful backdrop for the monument to those it had harmed. Back on Earth, President Russell addressed the United Earth Parliament one last time before stepping down. Her term had ended, and she had chosen not to run again. The war and its aftermath had taken a toll. 7,000 years ago, humanity chose peace because we were afraid, she said. We were new to the stars, confronted by powers we didn't understand. We signed a treaty that protected us, but ignored the suffering of others. She looked around at the faces watching her, human faces from colonies across the stars. This time, we chose war because there are some things worth fighting for. Our children, justice, freedom. And now we choose peace again, not from fear, but from strength and wisdom. As she stepped down from the podium, the chamber filled with applause. They had broken 7,000 years of peace, but in doing so, they had created the possibility for something better. A true peace, built on equality and respect. In her room at the academy, Lily Martinez felt the emotions of her fellow students. Joy, sorrow, hope, fear, all mixed together. The mental link they shared made isolation impossible. But it also made loneliness a thing of the past. Whatever happened, they would face it together.